In this demo, we're going to go over the step-by-step process that would be required to create a secure site-to-site VPN connection between an on-premise network and an Azure virtual network. Now, this type of connection allows you to extend your on-premise network into Azure, providing secure and encrypted communication between resources in both of those environments. Now, imagine a scenario where your company, Contoso, has a main office network and have started deploying some of their infrastructure and applications into an Azure virtual network. So to enable seamless and secure communication between their on-premise users and these Azure-based resources, Contoso needs to establish a site-to-site VPN connection. So what would be the steps? Well, step one is to plan your VPN connection. That means you need to have an Azure virtual network. You need an existing Azure VNet where you want to establish the connection. Ensure it has the appropriate subnets for your Azure resources. You need the gateway subnets. This subnet will host an Azure VPN gateway. A typical size is about /27 or larger, meaning you need to have enough IP addresses to support your entire network. You'll need to have an Azure VPN gateway. This is the Azure side VPN endpoint. You'll need to have public IP addresses because the Azure VPN gateway requires a public IP address for your on-premise VPN to be able to talk to. You also need a local network gateway. Now, earlier on in this course, we created or at least utilized a local network gateway, and that is a Azure side representation of your on-premise network. And then you'll establish the actual connection. That means a connection between the Azure VPN gateway and that local network gateway. That basically will create the site-to-site connection between Azure and your local area network. Then you have the on-premise VPN device, of course. You're going to need a physical or virtual VPN device on your on-premise network that supports IPsec VPN tunnels so that it can talk to Azure. So let's walk through all the various components here. So the first thing we need, as I said before, is you're going to need a virtual network. So I have the Microsoft Azure portal open in my browser, and I'm just going to walk through a few of the resources that we've created throughout this course just to give you a hint of the types of things that you need to establish that VPN connection. So as I said, the first thing you're going to need is a virtual network. So as you can see throughout this course, we've created a few virtual networks of our own. So if I click on SBDemo0309, for example, we can see that there is a virtual network, that it has its own address space of 10.1.0.0/16. And if we click on subnets, we can see that we've created a variety of subnets. And one of those subnets, if we expand the name, is a gateway subnet. Now this is very important. When you create a subnet that's specifically going to be used for a virtual network gateway, Microsoft Azure is going to magically call it gateway subnet. And there's nothing you can do about that. That is a required name. All right. The next thing you would need is a local network gateway. So using the search bar at the top of the screen, I'm going to type local network gateway, and then we're going to see a service called local network gateways. And we can see that there is a local network gateway that was created earlier on. So I'm going to tap on that. And it's also called SBDemo0309. And in here, you can see that it has an IP address and that it has an IP address space. Now, this is very important. The local network gateway is a representation of your network, your on-premise network. And so it needs to have the IP address of your on-premise network and then the IP address space used by your network. So I provided a dummy IP address when I created the local network gateway, but you can imagine this being perhaps the IP address of your network. The next thing you would do is create the site-to-site connection. So for that, we would actually navigate to our virtual gateways. Perfect. And we'll select virtual network gateways from the list of services. And we'll see that I have a virtual network gateway already called SBDemo0309. And if I tap on that and scroll down in the settings section, you'll notice a section called connections. So if I click on connections, then I'm going to see the list of all the connections that have been established. And we can see one that is called 0309. And if I click on that, and right away in the overview screen, we can see a bunch of information about this connection. We can see that it's using a specific virtual network, which is my SBDemo0309, that it's using a virtual network gateway, which is also called 0309, and it's using a local network gateway, which is 0309 as well. So this connection is establishing all the parameters of the connection between your on-premise system and the actual virtual network that we have up in Azure. So we can see the virtual network, we can see the local network gateway, which represents your on-premise system, and then the virtual network gateway, which establishes the connection between them as well. So now you can configure your on-premise VPN device. Now that we have all of this information, we can now configure that device. So what we will have with each of these items is we're going to have a public IP address. So if I go back to our virtual network gateways and I select my virtual network, you'll notice that there is a public IP address that is associated with this virtual network gateway. This is the public IP that can be used by your on-premise VPN device to connect to Azure. So you'd provide it that IP address. Then you would give the public IP address of your on-premise VPN device. Then you would establish the connection using pre-shared keys. Now this is very important. When you establish a connection, you're going to have to provide keys. And then that way it's a secure connection. Not anyone can connect to Azure. You need to have keys in order to be able to do that. Then once that connection is established, then you can create the VPN tunnel and verify its connection using the Azure portal. So we can be in the VPN gateway as we are now. We can click on connections and it should show up as connected. Right now the status is unknown, but of course once we've established the connection, it will say it's connected. So there you have it. In this demo, we went through what the steps would be to create a secure site-to-site VPN connection between an on-premise network and Azure. So we covered the planning stage, creating all the various aspects of the gateway, the subnets, the VPN in Azure, and the local network gateway representing your on-premise endpoint, and establishing the connection. The secure tunnel enables you to seamlessly extend your on-premise environment to the Azure cloud. Great job!